What is up, guys, and welcome back. Now that we've finished our early game series going through each of the 6 major powers, we're going to start a middle game strategy series here. And since there's really no way for me to predict what the board state may look like at this point in the game, I'm just going to talk about some broad aspects of what's probably going to be going on and give you my thoughts. And so these are going to be shorter videos for the next couple of weeks. Today we're going to be talking about the Eastern Front in Europe, probably Germany versus Russia here. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, so here in Eastern Europe, if your game follows a relatively historical path, you're probably going to see some fighting here between the Germans and the Russians. Usually around 1940, 1941, depending on how quickly the Germans get over here. So I've put the German roundels on the countries that they're probably going to have. I left East Poland out here because the Russians might have them. I just don't know at this point, who's going to have those two, so I've left them out. Talking about the Eastern Front is tough because we don't know how the Russians' rolls have gone, but in my experience, the Germans aren't going to come even close to, knocking the Russians out of the game over here on this front. A turn or two after the Russians get into the war and are attacked, they become very, very strong. And it's too much for the Germans to handle so far from their home country where they can make their good units. As the Germans, you want to kind of temper your expectations. You're not going to knock them out of the game like you might do in Global 40. The Russians will survive, unless things go really, really wrong for them. Because that's kind of the point of this game. It's a 3-player game. And if it was easy to knock the Russians out, then first off, it wouldn't be historical. And second off, it wouldn't be fun for the Russian player. So they get pretty strong. That the -1 to all ground units the first turn they're at war it's a really big deal if they play it right. If they save up a ton of money, then they can really, really drop a massive force that first turn they're at war. So for Germany, the first turn really is the most important. Okay, first things first, it is important for us to ask ourselves why we're attacking Russia in the first place. The first being is that there's a lot of money here on the Eastern Front, which you can take for yourself, and that the Russians don't have later in the game. And this is really going to help kind of temper them in the late game because the Russians really can become a beast late in the game. They've got great production. They can build their elite units right up here on the front line anywhere in home country. And that the first round after they're at war, they get -1 to all their ground unit purchases, which can be a really, really big deal if they save money up for it. So Russia gets really strong really quickly after they're at war. So it's important for the Germans to get in here and take some of their income before they can really use it and become super powerful for the late game. The second and probably most important is that there are some victory points for the Germans here in Russia. I've labeled them here. We've got 2 Lebensraum points. The first being the Baltic states up here. The second being this first line into Russia of Ukraine and Belarusia. Now you're probably only going to need one of these 2 Lebensraum points because, of course, you'll probably have the West Poland point. It's not too hard to get Yugoslavia in Thessaly. You'll probably have Yugoslavia pretty early on, and then Thessaly is a cakewalk to get in there because they're not going to be super fortified. Usually, unless the Allies are making a legit Greece plan to try to stop you from getting Thessaly, but probably not. And then, of course, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Denmark is going to be a cakewalk as well. So you're probably only going to need one of these 2 Lebensraum points. And then, of course, the other one is Soviet cities, getting 2 Soviet cities or Moscow. I'm going to take Moscow out of here because if you take Moscow, then that's a huge blow against the Allies and, of course, the Comintern. And at that point, it's going to be really, really tough for them to recover. And it's not going to happen very often. So I'm not going to talk about rushing for Moscow here. That's its own video, is the Moscow rush strategy. So we've got our victory points set up. We're going to try to get 2 of these cities and 1 of these Lebensraum points. There are 2, overarching strategies that we can use here. The first one is full northern aggression. The second one is full southern aggression. I don't generally recommend doing kind of a two-pronged attack. It really makes you kind of weak on both fronts. Usually you get bogged down really quickly on both accounts, and I've just found it to be more effective to pool all your power either into the north or into the south. So we're first going to talk about the north up here. Probably the most important, strong point to take is going to be Leningrad for sure. It's got this fortification, so it is going to be tough to take. So whether that be starting in Lubelsky if the Russians haven't taken it yet, or even doing some sort of amphibious landing if the Germans have any kind of a navy, which probably won't happen, so I'm not going to talk about that much. But really what you're going to want to do is start in Lubelsky and then blitz straight into Leningrad through northern Belarusia there. And so that's good. At that point, you've probably got half of this. You're going to have Leningrad, and at that point, it'll be a piece of cake to mop up these Baltic states, at which point you will have your Lebensraum, and you will have Leningrad, which is one of the two cities you need. The obvious next candidate is to circle back and try to take Smolensk, which probably will be a tough task given its proximity to those factories in Kursk and in Moscow. So Smolensk may actually be off the table. It's going to be a judgment call, but either way, you'll hopefully be able to secure one of either Kiev or Smolensk. And then, of course, after you've taken Leningrad and you're working on your second city, you can also make further attacks here into a Russian-occupied Finland, which is $3. And you can also come here into Karhala and Kola in northern Russia, because there's a lot of money to be had in this northern region. Going north is a good strategy. It's going to be tougher because of your proximity to Moscow. He's going to be pumping out a ton of units from there. And if you can't take Leningrad on your first turn, then it's going to be tough to recover. If he secures Leningrad, then you're basically boxed in between these factories of Leningrad, Moscow, and Kursk, and it's going to be tough for you to make any headway. So in my opinion, this is a little bit more risky of a path. It's like more risk, more reward. The plan that I have personally done more often is to go full southern aggression. So obviously what you're going to do is you're going to rush straight into Kiev here. And then right after I take Kiev, I fortify it as heavily as possible and then drop a couple factories in there. And then it suddenly becomes your new forward base of operations. You've got good production. If you've got improved factories, you've got great production in Kiev, you've got some in Romania, you've got some in Warsaw. You can rail 4 elite units to Romania and then 2 further into Russia using your rail system to get your research units from homeland Germany up to the front line. It's not super fast, but if you get it going pretty early, like even before you start invading Russia, just get 4 units ready to get railed to the front every turn. Yeah, you should be getting those advanced units onto the front line, no problem. And so after you've taken Kiev and really solidified your power in there, maybe taken eastern Ukraine, hopefully taken Taurida and Crimea. Crimea could be tough, but if they leave it underdefended, then it's a cakewalk. You walk in there with 3 units and hopefully they don't die. There's good money to be had there. You've got 3 in Kiev, which is the most valuable city outside of Moscow. So I really do like to take Kiev. And you've got a couple more bucks around here, which is good. And of course, from Romania or Kiev, these air bases, you are in range of dropping an airborne into Transcaucasia or North Caucasia and trying to snipe some of that money down there, as well as possibly aligning Turkey. It's going to be rare. They're probably going to leave a couple militia or an infantry or 2 in Transcaucasia, so you're going to have to actually physically work your way down there to take it, which I don't see happening. But it's worth keeping an eye on if you could try to possibly snipe Transcaucasia. And of course, always have airborne loaded up and ready to go to try to snipe Stalingrad or any of this money back here. Saratov is a good candidate. And just make them really defend all of their territories in Russia. It really spreads their defenses as thin as possible. Airbornes are going to be a great tool for the Germans to use against the Russians. And so after we've taken Kiev, you'll notice that we've only got one city and we don't have either of our Lebensraum points taken care of. So at this point, and usually all the while, from the very beginning, once you take Poland, I leave a relatively small force in Warsaw and slowly build it up, drop a dude or two there every turn. And then eventually, if the Russians are focusing most of their effort on your fortified South Kiev down here, then you can sneak up and either snag these Baltic states or probably better yet, take Belorussia and Smolensk, and then also turn Smolensk into somewhat of a fortress so that now they've got two big German strongholds to worry about on their front line. And it's going to make life for them really, really difficult. And beyond that, you're not going to go much further into Russia. As I said, they get really strong really quickly, so it's going to be hard to make any significant headway into Russia. I don't see you blitzing straight to Stalingrad with this Kursk factory here and Moscow being only 2 steps away. It's going to be tough for you to, try to do any kind of real German blitzkrieg to Stalingrad. And of course, with your airbornes, if you're down here in the south, that doesn't stop you from making air missions here from Western Germany into Finland or into the Baltic states, because of course you can reach from here with that air base. Airbornes are really going to let you prod and poke at the Soviet defenses and kind of get in there. And if your transport is still alive, then do not hesitate to make a landing somewhere. If it's undefended, really try to put pressure all along the front. Have your main force either here in the north or here in the south, but really try to poke and prod all along the front so they can't bring everything they possibly have down and retake the cities that you have hopefully taken on the first or second rounds of your assault. All right, guys, and that's all I got for this week. As I said, these videos are going to be a little bit shorter, only talking about specific situations that we will probably have in the mid-game. Next week is going to be all about the defense of Soviet Russia. I'll see you guys then. Love you.